Angeles woman is honored for bringing people together. We'll meet her next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Cecilia Nadal founded Hitana Productions in 1996 and works to promote cross-cultural awareness. And we welcome her to the show today. Cecilia, hi.
Thank you. Good to see you, Steve.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Because you were recently named a Purpose Prize Fellow by Encore.org. So how about a little background on that organization?
Well, they have been around for about 10 years, and they celebrate the idea of what people over the age of 60 can contribute to our community. They have a basic view that just because you hit 60, you don't stop.
I'm glad to hear that, by the way.
That you, in fact, are at the peak of your ability. Given all the experience that you've had, there is that opportunity to put all that experience together and use it for the benefit of the community.
So is that how you feel? Are you at your
I
peak?
do feel that way. I do. I feel that all these various journeys that I've taken over time are now crossing each other's path, and that my learning curve for starting new things is much less than before. So yes, I feel that way.
So was the purpose of the Purpose Prize Fellowship, is that because of your work specifically with Hitana Productions?
Yes.
Is that what it's all about?
It is.
And it's really bringing people together, and I think the way you put it, Cecilia, is people that might not normally sit down and talk.
That's right. That's right. Hitana, as you said, has been around since 1996. And our mission, exclusively as an arts organization, is to use the arts as the vehicle for bringing different people together in St. Louis. So from the very beginning, our intent was not just to create great art, great theater, great concerts, but to use those vehicles to bring people in our community together who normally don't come together.
We have a couple of pictures here, 3 pictures. Let's take a look at them. I think they're just various pictures from events or things that you or Hitana Productions has been involved in. And why don't you tell us what we're looking at?
Well, that's a very special picture. We did a play called My Heart Is Always Shaking, Afghan Women Refugees in St. Louis. And that picture depicts Afghan women who live here in St. Louis, who came to the theater for the first time in their lives, and they brought their kids with them. What I want you to notice, though, is that there's not one adult man there. Not one. Now, because of Muslim faith, the idea of coming out to a theater was not something that was acceptable, but those women brought their young kids, both boys and girls, to see this show which talked about them. And that was a very special moment for us.
Let's go to the next one.
Yes. We actually held one of the first festivals world festivals in North St. Louis, in a park where a young man had been shot in a drive-by shooting. And in this unique area, there are immigrants as well as African Americans who live near each other. It's not far from the Loop, actually, very close to Page and Skinker. And so we held a festival to bring that community together, to bring Latinos, African Americans, Somalis, Tanzanians, Hondurans, to bring them together through music. And that is a picture of that particular Peace Festival.
We have one more.
Well, that's me with these 3 adorable kids that came with their parents to the Ferguson protest. And I was so smitten with the fact that these small children were brought by their parents. And the parents said to me, we wanted to come out, we live in Ferguson, and we wanted to come out and support our African American friends who were protesting. Now, the reason I would be at a place like that is because I'm trying to find out how we, as an arts organization, can be helpful in addressing the issues in Ferguson.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're working on something right now, that
Yes.
a play that I guess will be produced at some point next year, next spring, Black and Blue in St. Louis.
That's right, that's right. It was clear to me after having been at the protest that there were issues that are very broad that come from Ferguson, one of which is the lack of trust that exists between the African American community and the police. And in the case of Ferguson, that lack of trust has amplified itself in the form of overreaction on both sides, even militarization of something that should be a human right. So we thought it would be helpful to the conversation of Ferguson to show balance and to help people to understand that we have to do something about that distrust, but we also have to understand the role that the police play as well as the role that protesters play. So we're going to deal with justice issues, but we're also going to deal with the need to get along.
It's a complicated topic, that's for
very
sure.
complicated.
And we're going to talk more about that later in the program, and you brought some people with you, and we'll explain that a little bit more. Let's go back and look at 3 more images from things that you and Hitana Productions have been involved with as far as bringing cross-cultural awareness to the St. Louis community. What's this?
Well, that is an Asian workshop. We conducted the first regional workshop on cross-cultural engagement, and one of the components was diversity within the Asian community. And so on that panel, you will see representatives that come from India, from Taiwan, from China, and Vietnam. And in that session, they talked about what it means to be a diverse Asian community here in St. Louis.
Let's go to the next one.
Well, part of my work takes me to places that you never expect. And some years ago, in 2006, I was very interested in bringing a Muslim artist here. So I went to Morocco, wanted to go anyway, went on the desert, and was on the desert for 5 days. I didn't expect that particular picture to come up.
Did you take a ride while you were there?
I did, and that was actually the camel that I was on for those 5 days. Wow. And we grew pretty close to each other. And I tell you, contrary to what people say about camels, that was he was very much of a friend. In fact, rescued me. I was very sick, and when you are going up a sand dune, they take you off the camel because they don't want to hurt the legs of the camel. And I got sick, and the camel broke away from the owner and came down, put his legs down so I could get on top of him and go back up.
You were sick, but the camel was fine,
Oh,
right?
Yeah. The camel
I rode a
was
camel
fine.
when I was a kid. The Bronx Zoo is kind of fun.
Is that right?
Let's go,
Yeah.
let's go to the next shot.
And that is, contrary to public opinion, the people who have come out to the protest are people from all over the world. And one of the magical moments that occurred was when these 6 to 8 Tibetan monks came out to Ferguson on West Florissant. And everyone looked and they could not believe that they were coming to the protest. And when asked, why are you here? They said, it's because we love this community.
Cecilia, let me ask you about something else that Hitana Productions has been doing. I don't know if it's from the beginning, but for a long time. Every year, you recognize extraordinary, ordinary people of the year. What's that all about?
Well, we could see very early on that it was important to connect the arts to humanitarian efforts in St. Louis, and that it made sense for the Forum of the Arts to recognize people who were doing voluntary things that were very important. So we have, since the beginning, recognized on a regional basis volunteers who do things beyond race and religion. And basically, we recognize them on stage. We do a lot of PR behind their work in an effort to show that there are normal people out there doing wonderful things that contribute to greater racial parity as well as relationship.
Let's look. We have some images now, some pictures now, I think, of you in particular, Cecilia, at a special event, and you can tell us about that.
Okay. That was the celebration of oneness at Strauss Park on Grand Square. And we brought in a very diverse group of people. In fact, I'm out there dancing with, that's Jaime Torres in the front, and I'm in the back, and we're being led by a Brazilian dancer and singer who was showing us how to do samba.
Let's keep going. Look at as many pictures as we can before we're done with this segment.
Yeah, that's also still the celebration of oneness. And what we did was to use a technique that the Indians use. It's called the Holi Festival, H-O-L-I. And they take these colorful powders and they just throw them at each other. And what that means in Hindu culture is that we are all one despite the colors. And so we had a lot of fun. A mixed group of people, white Americans, African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans throwing that powder. I got more than my due share of it, as you can see.
Is that hard getting off?
No, it's not. Okay. Actually, it washes very well.
Let's keep going. That's the same event, I think.
Yes, it is. And that is Eileen Wolfington, who has a group that dances Mexican music.
And we have a few more.
That was an interesting workshop. We did a play called Soy Yo, which means I am me. And before that play, we conducted a symposium on what it means to be Afro-Latina. So we had women who came from corporate America as well as the arts, and they talked about what their experience was like to be both Latin as well as African. And that was really a very revealing session.
Let's look at a couple more before we take our break. These are some actors, I think, right?
Well, no, those are my gypsy buddies.
Your gypsy buddies.
Yes, that's right. We did a festival in Forest Park, which was actually the first Roma or gypsy music festival in St. Louis. And those guys got together. I said, I want to get a picture of you, and they did. And I have had a relationship with them ever since. In fact, I've been at christenings and weddings and even was a judge in one of their debutante efforts, which has been incredible.
Let's look at another one.
That was an effort to reach out to the same community in North St. Louis, and we were going to have a police community relations meeting, and so that was the flyer that we sent out. I believe that one is in English, but there's also one in Spanish, and we put that out so that we could get people to come together and talk about their needs.
Let's look at one more, if we have one more. And if we don't, that's fine. I want to ask you, right before we take a break, though, I want to ask you about one thing. I just want to promote an event that you have coming up on February the 14th, and that's a concert, Faces of Love concert?
Yes, that's going to be very special. Every year we have what is called a Faces of Love concert with different themes. This year it's called Celebration of the Divine Feminine. And so we will have mostly female artists from Japan, an incredible violin virtuoso who will play Amy Kami, who is from St. Louis, Ashka Kaneko. There is a gospel singer, Ruth Latchison-Nichols, and a young man who's Brazilian whose name is Jasnan Aigo, and he plays piano. And that's going to be an incredible event.
February 14th, people should check out your website, and we'll have that come up here in just a second.
You.
We're going to take a break, Cecilia, and when we come back, you've brought a couple of people with you, and we have some interesting things to talk about, including what's been happening in Ferguson and your response to that. So we'll be back with more City Corner right after this.
Watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes twice a day. They have the time.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
The odds of this daughter of a clergyman spending 11 weeks at #1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org.
And welcome back to City Corner. We've been talking today with Cecilia Nadal of Hitana Productions, and that's a group that uses art, dance, music, theater, special events to bring people together, people of different cultures. Cecilia is back for this half of the program. Also, next to her, joining us now, is Ferguson resident David Royal, and also here from the Hispanic Leaders Group of St. Louis, Maria Teresa Maldonado. Welcome to you all.
Morning.
Thank you, Will.
Good to have you here. Cecilia, we talked earlier about a play that you're producing that's going to open sometime next spring, I guess it would be, called Black and Blue, addressing the things that have happened in Ferguson and relationships between the public and police. Why did you bring these two guests with you today?
Well, I wanted to show the depth and the breadth of what we do and the diversity of our partners. And in the case of Maria Teresa Maldonado, we have a long-standing relationship with the Hispanic Leadership Group and also with members of that community. And she is aware of the work that we've done between African Americans and the Latino community. And I felt that because of her love of cross-cultural engagement, that she could speak to that.
And David?
Well, and David is kind of different, but not different. David was out there as a young man involved in the protest, and we were interested in hearing the voices of the people
Ferguson.
who were there in
Right.
Ferguson. And we met David as a result of our outreach to hear their stories and to incorporate those stories into the play that we're going to produce.
All right, before we go any further then, Maria, let's hear from you. What's been your experience with Hitana Productions, and why are you involved?
Well, first of all, I would like to state that Hitana Production is doing an awesome job of speaking to many in a very non-threatening and engaging way. And that's how we move forward. I am a psychologist by profession, and basically know that there's an emotion that drives us forward or basically stopped us. And usually fear will stop us. And when you're dealing with cross-cultural engagement, when you're bringing together friends, family, community, we have to do it in a way that is non-threatening. And Hitana Production does that by excellence. They use the arts to communicate. It's that needle and thread that join us through a common path towards prosperity in the St. Louis region. The organization that I have been long-term associated with, very dear to my heart, is the Hispanic Leaders Group. And we have a similar mission. We basically bring together community, and we like to be the group that brings the Hispanic presence to this region through engagement, networking, advocacy. So we have a lot of in common, and I don't know if you knew, but this is a fellow Puerto Rican too, like me. So we have that multicultural aspect,
Right.
and that's why we're together for many events.
Well, as a psychologist, I think you'll have something to add to this conversation when we talk about what's happening in Ferguson, because there's some people that could use psychologists, in my humble opinion. David Royal, let's talk to you. You are a Ferguson resident,
I am.
and this is so fascinating. You actually live on Canfield Drive. That is where the incident with Michael Brown happened.
Correct,
And
yes,
you were
sir.
there, not at the shooting, but I guess right after.
Maybe a few minutes after the shooting.
Tell me what you saw and what you did.
What I saw actually was Mike Brown on the ground in the middle of the street. There were women screaming and crying and things like that. So the first thing that I did was to call the police, to call news stations so that we could shed some light on this situation, because oftentimes things like this will happen and they kind of get swept up under the rug. So, you know, first and foremost, we needed to get attention brought
But
to the
you
scene.
didn't have any idea what really had happened. I mean, you knew someone had been shot, but that was about it, right?
Right. That's about all I knew. We knew that there was a police-involved shooting, but you know, people were just kind of hurt and disturbed that that incident went down the way that it did. So,
Maria, maybe you might want to talk a little bit about the psychology of this whole thing. So many people with so many different points of view. To me, as a totally outside observer, it was like everybody seemed to know what was going on, and I wondered who really, if you weren't really there, who knew what was going on. So how does the average person sort this out? It's complicated.
I think it's, you said it right, it's very complicated. I think that basically depending on your experience, your life experience, how you perceive things, because in life, 10% is what happens, 90% is how you perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the big issue comes.
You know, to me almost, and you know, I'm in the media, so I hate to criticize the news media, but maybe they can't help it. You talk about how things, 90% of is how we perceive things. The way we see things on television are not necessarily accurate. So for a lot of people, we may be perceiving things incorrectly.
Well, that is something that, to me, and I'm speaking as an individual who have lived in this community for 32 years and are very much part of the fabric of St. Louis. That's why it's so important personally to wait for facts to come out.
Right. Let me stop you there. Go ahead, David.
no, that's definitely important, the facts and everything involved with the case. But as far as not getting a whole understanding of the community and things, all you have to do is come to Ferguson and engage
Well,
us.
yeah, I wanted you to talk about that because as someone that lives there and was there, tell me, for those of us that only saw what we saw on TV, what don't we understand?
What you don't understand is the pain. On TV, you see what looks like a lot of anger, but there is anger, and that's what the media seems to be focusing on. But what you don't see is the community coming together every morning, picking up trash, picking up leaves from the memorial. Somebody's always outside if you want to come and look at the memorial to let you know that, hey, you are welcome here. You know, come by, take pictures, fellowship with us, the community, because we are hurting and we're trying to heal.
You're involved with this group, Center for Hope and Peace.
Right,
And
the Center
was
for
that
Hope and
formed
Peace.
as a result of what happened there?
It definitely was. There are a lot of groups. We believe in a holistic approach to this healing thing. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but there are other groups that have programs going on to fix warrants or, you know, to get involved with the arts, to get entrepreneurship training and things like that. This place is going to be the hub for that.
And so, Cecilia, David was one of many people, I guess, that you've talked to and interviewed or are currently doing that in preparation for this
That's
play,
right.
Black and White in St. Louis.
That's right, that's right. This whole discussion of what is real, what is not, what the facts are, really does demand that we are willing to step out of our boxes and enter into the world where people are. And Hitana has always done that. When you saw the Afghan women, the reason those women came is because we talked to them and asked them, what is your story? What is it like to be an Afghan woman who was chased down by the Taliban, and now you live on Jefferson in a community that's African American and going into a grocery store where you never went to a grocery store before. And this is the same thing that's happening with Ferguson. We have gone in to talk to the people, to hear what they have to say, to get the pulse of what's going on, to look at the multiple realities that are there. And then after getting those realities, formulate a play that is wedged in those realities.
All right, Maria and David, I have a final question for each of you. You know, we are bombarded with images from Ferguson, negative images mostly about what's happened there and what continues to go on there. So in light of all that, what do you see as encouraging coming out of this?
You know, I am so glad that you're addressing that, Steve, because that's something that really bothers me. I have been a resident of Old Town Florissant for 32 years. We are next door neighbors to Ferguson. Ferguson to me is a place that is not only diverse, but that good people, families live there. Yes, there is a certain percent that is in need of upward mobility, but there's also many, many, many families that are middle class, that have their children, that want the same thing that everybody does.
Let me just stop you there only because we're running out of time. David, I just want some final thoughts for you about what good we can take out of this.
What good we can take out of it is this negative situation has pulled the city of Ferguson together, the people themselves. Now, watching it on TV, you may not see that, but I do. Every day when I'm walking to go to school, when I'm coming home, people are doing things like walking old ladies across the street. You know, you see a kid running in the street where you might have ignored that before. Now people are looking out like, hey, little man, where are your parents at? What's going on? You know, that village and sense of togetherness is the biggest thing that's coming up out of this.
So there's reason to have some hope.
There is
Absolutely.
a lot of hope.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And Cecilia, we want to remind people about Black and Blue in St. Louis. Where does it stand now, and where do you think we can see this in the future?
Well, we're going to be touring this show in the middle of May through the middle of June. And we hope to be taking it to venues all over the area.
And people should check out your website
Yes,
as the time
please.
goes on. Thank you all so much for being here, and it's great to hear your stories. And I
Thanks
feel
for
better about
having
it
us.
already, so thank you.
Good, good.
I'm Steve Potter, and that's all the time we have for this edition of City Corner. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Bye.